Juju Venkunade.
We, the executive members of Delhi Chakma Students Union, have gathered here today on the observance of Black Day, which took place on 17 August 1947 at CHT. This is a reminder of the injustice and the suffering faced by the indigenous tribes of Chittagong Hill Tracts. It is a day to remember the pain, to stand against oppression, and to strengthen our commitment to truth and justice. So, this is a press statement from Delhi Chakma Students Union. Black Day, remembering the unjust handover of the Chittagong Hill Tracts to Pakistan in 1947. 17 August today marks Black Day, the day of mourning and remembrance of the unjust and unilateral handover of the Chittagong Hill Tracts to Pakistan on 17 August 1947, just 2 days after the independence of India and Pakistan. This decision, part of the Radcliffe Award, ignored the demographic reality, the will of the indigenous peoples, and the commitments made by leaders during partition negotiations. It also violated the very principle of two-nation theory that was agreed to divide British India. A land betrayed. The Chittagong Hill Tracts, home to the Chakmas, Marmas, Tripuris, Mros, and several other indigenous communities, was an overwhelmingly non-Muslim region, over 97% at the time of partition. According to the principle applied by the Boundary Commission, the area should have been a part of India. It shared religious, cultural, economic and geographic ties with undivided Assam and Tripura, and was governed as an excluded area under the British Raj. Despite clear expectations and assurances from Indian leaders, the Radcliffe Award abruptly assigned the CHT to East Pakistan, citing administrative convenience with the Chittagong port. The announcement was made on 17 August 1947, just 2 days after the people of CHT had hoisted the Indian flag in Rangamati in the celebration of independence.
Shock, displacement and struggle. The news plumbed the hill peoples into grief. Black flags were raised, petitions sent and protests organized. But their voices went unheard. Within days, Pakistani forces entered the region, lowered the Indian flag at gunpoint, and assumed control. Over the decades, the CHT's excluded area status was removed. Large-scale projects like the Kaptai Dam submerged 54,000 acres of arable land and displaced tens of thousands, and indigenous lands were lost to migration of Bengali settlers and militarization. The Pakistani regime also abolished the special status given to the CHT as an excluded area in 1963 and made sweeping administrative changes to alter the demographic profile of CHT through forced settlements, acts of violence and atrocities on the hill people. This policy continued unabated after the creation of Bangladesh, and a protracted conflict ensued between the Shanti Bahini, an armed resistance formed of the indigenous people, and the government forces until a peace accord was signed in 1997. However, this accord remains on paper and most of the provisions remain unimplemented even to this day.
Why 17 August is a black day? Since then, 17 August has been observed as a black day by the CHT's indigenous people and their supporters across Northeast India and beyond. It is a day of mourning but also of resilience and a reminder that the injustices of partition must be acknowledged and that the rights and voices of indigenous peoples must be respected. It is also a black day for the Chakmas because their kingdom and their land was divided into two, India and Pakistan.
So now the lessons and the road ahead. Black Day is not an exercise in reopening old wounds, but in ensuring history is not forgotten. The tragedy of the Chittagong Hill Tracts demonstrates that political boundaries drawn without consent leave deep and lasting scars, and indigenous communities like the chakmas and other microscopic tribes, become worst victims. Also, the indigenous communities must be meaningfully included in decision making and their voices should be heard. Recognition, justice, and preservation of cultural heritage are vital for lasting peace. We call on academicians, historians, educators, policymakers, and the wider public to remember the story of Chittagong Hill Tracks, not just as a footnote to partition, but as a central example of how communities can be silenced and displaced when political expediency overrides justice. KCSU believes that the Pakistani regime and the subsequent government of Bangladesh has completely failed to protect the rights of the indigenous hill people and the Chittagong Hill Tracts, and has not shown any interest to honor the peace accord of 1997. We therefore call upon the Government of India to underscore CHT as a lost territory to Pakistan and request the government to recognize the injustices done to the Hills people, initiate parliamentary debates and take appropriate measures to reclaim Chittagong Hill Tracts as a part and parcel of India for the lasting peace.